Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer, food maker, or artisan selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast.
I'm Kat Fields-White.
And I'm Bridget Myers. We're longtime farmers market managers, educators, and consultants. Get ready to catch up on all things farmers market pros with us. During this month of Recruit and Retain episodes, today we're talking with Natalie Labejof of Farm Habit about how to find and keep the best staff members for your market or market business.
Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by the 9th annual NTENTS, the National Farmers Market Conference. Join us March 10th through 12th at the beach in sunny San Diego, California, for 3 full days of informative workshops and presentations to make your farmers market or market business more profitable and less stressful. Hear from experts and your fellow market managers and participants about how to improve your marketing and displays, structure your organization, train your staff, and balance your budget with funds left over for growth. We'll all learn simple ways to speak up for farmers markets to gain more support from policymakers, municipalities, funders, and our own shoppers. Oh, and we'll have some fun and make new connections with market people from throughout the U.S. and Canada and beyond who understand that, yes, our job is weird. Don't miss it. Save your seat by clicking the Register Now button at farmersmarketpros.com today.
All right, well, welcome back to Tent Talk, everybody. We are in the final stretch of conference prep. Well, maybe not final yet, but it seems so close.
5 weeks.
5 weeks away, everybody.
5 weeks from NTENTS, the National Farmers Market Conference.
We're very excited. Multinational.
Actually.
That's right.
We have both attendees and speakers coming to San Diego from throughout the U.S., but also from Canada and the U.K. We've got a little contingent of speakers from England this year.
Lovely. Very excited to see our multinational friends.
Yes.
And our domestic friends. And yeah, just really excited for everyone who's signing up and can't wait. It's going to be great.
Yep, for sure. Mm-hmm. And we get a lot of live online folks that tune in, even from a lot of other countries.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we haven't figured out how to do like simultaneous translation. So it's typically English speakers.
Yes.
But it's English speakers from all over. We've got somebody signed up from Ghana and somebody from Norway. And yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, always fun.
I think they have to wake up in the middle of the night, but that's what we have to do when we attend conferences.
That's right.
Virtual conferences in other parts of the world as well. So
yeah.
Just glad to bring everyone together, all of our like minds, talk about things that only we understand. And just a reminder, registration is still open, and now is the time to make travel plans.
Yeah, actually, attendee rates at the Catamaran Resort, which is our new fancy, beachy conference venue, close the end of this week.
Oh.
So people want to jump on that. I'm sure there will be rooms available after that, but we won't necessarily have the attendee discount block that could be full.
Oh, yeah. So everybody hop on that.
Yep.
All right, get to it. Conference is coming. All right, let's get to our episode. Today we are talking about recruiting and retaining market staff. Our guest today is Natalie Labejof, Director of Operations of Farm Habit. She joined us at the 2024 conference to talk about building a dream team. Let's see what she has to share about the current employment market and the best methods to recruit and retain the best staff this year. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited. And I can't believe it's 5 weeks out. I'm glad you said that out loud because I was like, oh, I need to book my place.
Yeah.
So
jump on
It's
that.
a reminder for everybody, speakers, attendees alike.
Yeah.
Actually, I should book my room. Just thought of that right now. I need to book my room. Okay. I mean, I do live in San Diego, but I'm going to stay on site. So there we go. We're just reminding each other.
Yeah.
Let's do
it.
Good. Great. Well, so for folks that weren't at the conference last year or not familiar with you, you want to just give everyone a little kind of professional background and what brought you to farmers markets and specifically to Farm Habit.
Yeah, absolutely. I come from the world of restaurants. I've been working in restaurants since I was actually before I was an adult. In high school, I worked at Dairy Queen. So I was really done it all from fast food all the way through like the finest of dining. I've kind of worked in all the different facets of restaurants, and particularly in training and opening new restaurants. So I was traveling a lot and I've opened in London and in Seoul, Korea, and then a bunch across the US as well. And I truly loved it and still love restaurants in general, of course, and kind of the culture of restaurants. However, my most recent job in a restaurant was feeling I was starting to feel a little unfulfilled. It was a fast food place. We were churning crazy numbers of food out per restaurant per day. And the thing that really always caught me was the t-shirt bags that we would give out with every single order. And some of those restaurants are doing like 40,000 orders a day. And I was like, man, this feels not great, you know? And so I started looking around and then found a posting for this job, and I read through their rules, and they literally said no t-shirt bags, and I was like, oh, what, that feels like such a perfect balance out of the other side of what I was doing. And so that kind of hooked me in a little bit and started interviewing and felt really good about it. And now I'm here. And I have a little farmer's market that's pretty close to my house that I would go to before, but I really didn't know anything about the operations of farmers markets before joining the team. So I feel really lucky to have found it. And now I'm like, I couldn't imagine doing what I was doing before. Now this is it. This is what I feel really passionate about.
I mean, nobody really knows about market operations, right? I came from restaurant and then restaurant related publishing. And I remember thinking, oh, I'd never want to own a restaurant again. But then I started looking into farmers markets and I thought, oh, that's like owning a restaurant. I'll recognize my regular customers. I'll work around food people, but it'll only be one day a week.
Yeah. Jokes on us.
What do you do the other 6 days?
Yeah,
shocker.
It's a fun surprise.
Right.
I think restaurant, that was like the perfect experience for farmers market
I think
management.
so too.
I think so too. They're different jobs in a lot of ways, but I think restaurant's a good like prep. When I look to hire folks,
Totally.
I look, if you've had a restaurant job, I feel like that's such great experience leading into working at a farmers market operations group.
100%. For me, if you've worked in a restaurant and we're talking in an interview, it's in my head, it's like a little tick up for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's perfect training, even though, like you said, I thought it was going to be really similar. I thought coming in that it would feel the same and kind of have the same challenges, but really it's quite different. But I still felt very prepared for everything that I'm encountering here because of the restaurant experience.
Yeah, the skills learned in running restaurants is something that's helpful.
Yeah.
So about Farm Habit, how long has Farm Habit and like Farmer Marks been around, and how many markets? Because you guys do multiple markets. So just give us a little info about your markets, what day of the week, and different locations.
Yeah. So Farm Habit has been around for now 15 years. We just did our 15-year anniversary in the summer of the Playa Vista market. That was the first market. It was called Farmer Mark before, and then pretty shortly after I joined, we rebranded and like fully rebranded as of the summer of 23, and now we're called Farm Habit, and that's just to kind of represent who we are now. Mark was running the business alone for so long, so it was called Farmer Mark because he was a farmer and his name was Mark. So it just made a lot of sense. But now we're a lot bigger, and we wanted to kind of represent our whole team and everything that we're doing, and also really encourage the habit of going to the farmers market every week. So yeah, we rebranded, and then we operate 8 markets right now across LA County and Orange County. They run on 5 days out of the week. So we have Tuesdays and Fridays. We don't have any markets, but we have markets on the other 5 days of the week.
You have Monday markets?
We have Monday. We have West Hollywood.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. There's only one Monday market in San Diego County, but there's multiple markets every other day of the week.
Yeah. Yeah. She's a beauty. That market has been running for 30 years, and we picked it up 2 years ago now. And, oh, I love that market so much. It's so great because the farmers that are there are incredible, and they all treat it as like their kind of come down off the weekend. And so it's a wonderful market. I really like that one.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. It's so nice. They all have their own personalities, all different markets. Yeah. So with 8 markets, that sounds like probably a lot of staff. How many staff members do you have at Farm Habit, and what kind of various levels are they, like paid volunteers, full-time, part-time? How do you like balance all that, and how many do you have?
Yeah, so we have 33 people on our roster right now, including Mark and myself and everybody on our team. 3 of us are salaried, and then we have three others that are full-time 40 hours that are hourly. And then we have at every market, we have a market manager, but they are primarily only doing their market plus a tiny bit of admin outside of their market. But they also all sub for each other. So, if somebody's out sick or whatever, they'll sub. And then most of the markets, not all of them, but most of them have a crew that report up to that market manager that, are assisting on the day of. But we have a couple markets that it's just the market manager that's there as well. And then for volunteers, we actually run a nonprofit as well. So we only use the volunteers for those nonprofit pieces, which would be we do a program called Cooking Together, where we go into transitional villages and we have cooking classes where we'll teach kids and their families how to cook. And then we just started this past year a program called Good Cooks, where we're bringing in a volunteer who's pretty adept in the kitchen. And the idea is just that people can come up and say, what the heck do I do with this fennel? And then just have a conversation about that and try to just make people feel more comfortable while they're there in the market to try new things and explore what the market has to offer.
Oh, nice programs.
That's fun. So folks, like you just buy something and then you can just walk up and get it's a little advice booth for how to cook something.
Yeah.
That's so
smart.
Remember, I always wanted to have a prep booth.
Yes.
I always wanted to have a booth with a chef in it where you could buy vegetables and bring it to them and let them prep. I think it would go crazy.
Yes.
Me too. Honestly, when I was interviewing for this, I thought to myself, maybe I should just do that. Maybe I should just go and be ready to prep veg. And it's California has a lot of rules around things like that, but it's possible. And I know I totally, it's been on my mind for 2.5 years.
As a shopper, I would love that because I love cooking. I don't love the prep part. Takes a lot of time, takes a lot of kitchen space. So it's a clever idea.
And I think a lot of people end up at Trader Joe's because they can buy butternut squash cubes.
Yes.
100%.
Because they don't want to tackle that squash.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have one farmer that does some pretty intense prep ahead of time, and they do really well. I mean, they do really well. And I don't love the extra plastic, but at least people are buying good stuff, and So anyway.
Well, it's a great idea. If anyone is listening out there thinking of a market idea, start a prep booth and you can come to all our markets.
That's right.
So it sounds like you have a big crew with various kind of types of hours available and jobs and everything. When are you looking for staff? Do you do a search for staff seasonally or just as positions become available, or how do you organize your staff search?
Yeah. So, California, we're open all year. So the seasons to us don't really make too big of a difference except school. I like to think a lot about the school year because I hire a lot of high schoolers. And so knowing kind of when they're going to be done, what their summer plans look like. So actually, right, I'm always accepting applications 100%. We always have a button up on our website because if there's a perfect person, I'm going to take them and I'll find some hours for them. But as far as looking, so right now I just talked to my manager the market manager who has the most high schoolers. And I said, hey, we need to find out what do their summers look like? Are they going away for college in the fall? Or are they staying? And so we got our account. We know how many we need. And now we're going to start that process now because I'd rather them get trained up and feeling comfortable so that they go into the summer, feeling ready to go.
Nice.
Smart.
What kind of jobs are the high schoolers doing? Are they just because I've always thought, I should bring on some younger folks, but everyone on our team kind of does a lot of compliance enforcement and stuff like that. So, but what are they doing when they're working for you?
Yeah, so they are considered our crew. So, putting up our tents and the musicians' tents and signage and the barricades and chalking the ground in the morning and being at the info booth and processing EBT and, chatting with customers. Depending on the market, some of them are also doing compost if the market has compost. So yeah, they do everything that everyone does, except I don't have anyone under 18 doing what we call booth checks, which is, checking, TFFs and things like that.
Oh, got it. Yes, that's
That's great. So high schoolers could do a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Put Marley to work.
Yeah. I know. Put my high schooler to work and his friends.
So generally speaking, you hear it about restaurants. I think we've seen it some. A lot of things about the job market and finding employees seem to change during and then after COVID. So what kind of changes have you seen, Natalie?
Yeah, I wasn't here during COVID. I was at my last restaurant job during COVID, and we never we never closed, not a single day. So for us, it didn't feel any different because we were just constantly grinding. And I've been thinking about that, and I think that actually the biggest change is a positive, which is that people are more willing to call out when they're sick. I was thinking back to like I never called out sick. I would go in sick, it just like was not an option in my brain, which is not great, and grind culture is the enemy, and I want to stay away from that. And now I noticed a big change of like people are calling out, and that's what we want to happen because I don't want sickness to spread. But that also means that you have to be prepared for it. So having a fluffed up staff a little bit and being able to have people that are ready to go if someone is sick or calling out is so essential to making everyone feel good, because ultimately, if you do have people calling out and you're not ready to cover it, and then people are working extra hours or so much harder, et cetera, they're going to end up getting sick too. And then you're back in the same cycle again. So that's really the thing I think for me that has changed, is just being more prepared for when people are calling out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, we see that with vendors too.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have vendors and farmers that would show up, I mean, just dragging, clearly sick.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
Yeah.
they needed the money, and they
Right.
also just, we used to be a lot more strict about you have to be here consistently. It frustrates the shoppers if you're not here. But I think
Right.
the whole pandemic experience and after that has just put us in a different frame of mind. And it's like, well, okay, if you're sick, stay home, and we'll see you next week.
Please don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely.
Have your recruiting methods changed at all?
Not personally, no. But again, I came into this role in 22, and so by that time, kind of COVID wasn't I wasn't thinking about COVID when I started doing recruitment for this role, or for this company. So I've only just changed in other ways of learning this, having a 1 day a week job and how that works for people and getting them convinced that that's a good idea. So my tactics personally have changed, but not because of COVID, more because of this role is
Just a little
weird.
different industry than
Yeah.
than restaurants are, exactly.
Mhm.
Where do you look for employees? What do you find the most effective in terms of outreach and maybe online platforms? Or
Mhm.
I heard you say you have a button on your website that's up all the time. That's helpful. What other ways do you reach out and look for folks and let them know that you've got an opening?
Yeah, so we have the button on our website all the time. That one's just a blank, like if you think you're a good fit with us, fill this out. We also, if I'm actively looking for a particular role, I will have an additional button for that. I use Indeed for all of our recruiting, or not for recruiting, but for the interview process, because, well, there's a few reasons. One, there's chat functions, interview functions, all of that through it. So I don't have to go back and forth between email and all of that. And then also because it allows you to ask questions in the application. For example, I always have, why do you want to work at a farmer's market? Because some people just straight up won't answer. It's not like required to answer. And if they don't answer it, then I'm like, I'm not going to interview you. If you won't take the time to write one sentence down, I'm not going to take the time to, interview you. So I really like Indeed. So it's up on Indeed. It's up on our website. If it's been a couple weeks and I'm not seeing traction, then we'll put it up on our Instagram. And then also word of mouth. So, our high schoolers, like I was mentioning, I try to always have a couple juniors on the team, because that means they're going to be with us for at least a year and a half. And so my seniors right now, I'm like, okay, I need your junior friends. It's time. Like, it's time for them to start. It's time for them to get in there and start. So, using our team to recruit others has also really been impactful for us too.
Yeah, that's really smart. We have a vendor who's a very organized woman. Her business is dynamic, and she's always used, I think she looks specifically for honor students that are in college, but that has been her entire recruitment platform too, is that when those kids are getting close to graduation, and I guess by then they're not kids, they're young adults. But she's always, who else do you know that's your caliber of student? Send them over.
That's right.
That needs a job.
And I think it works well because they also don't want to work with a lazy person.
Sure.
They're not going to tell their friend who they know is like not going to be that great, because that means they're the ones carrying all the tents by themselves, So
yeah,
I think it
makes so
works.
much sense. When I was at the Overland Park Market in Kansas last summer, they were all the whole staff, the team there was wearing big buttons that said, "This is a fun place to work. We're hiring." It was
Yes,
so interesting.
totally.
I thought
It's
that was
so
such a
good.
clever idea.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
great idea.
absolutely.
Yeah, because then you're reaching people that are already at the market so they understand what the market
Yep.
looks like. Because it's just, if you're looking online, sometimes I would think you'd get folks that maybe have not spent a lot of time at markets, and so they don't really
Hmm.
understand what the vibe is out there. So that's great to have those buttons or signs or something at the market.
I would think that'd be really effective too for farmers and vendors.
Yes.
So,
A
that their
hundred
team and their
percent.
booth would have a button like that or a sign on their table that says, "This is a great place to work. Want to join me?" That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe you might have mentioned that at the conference last year because that when you were saying that, I was like, oh, I wrote that down about doing buttons, like us making the buttons and then being able to give them to vendors that they could then wear it if they were hiring. I think that's such a good idea.
So
So thanks
smart.
for the reminder.
Yeah.
Get on
Yeah.
that.
I just thought it was so clever. What are the key things you include? So you are posting jobs, it sounds like. So what are the kind of key things that you include in a job ad or posting? Do you talk about pay rates and benefits? Actually, I think in California now you have to give a pay, at least a range, right?
I
Mm.
always put a starting at
Got it.
as like a minimum amount that they would definitely be getting. And what I've found is that's so essential as a level set because I think we get a lot of people who think, whoa, especially for a manager position, right? They're like, whoa, this sounds like the most fun job ever. I'm overqualified for this. I'm gonna take it. And if they don't have that price range of like, hey, we're starting at $20 an hour, and they think they're coming in at 30, it's gonna, it's not gonna feel good and it's a waste of their time and our time. So yeah, having that minimum is really essential. For us, we actually don't do any medical benefits, but we talk a little bit at kind of about the other like small benefits that we do of like you get lunch money each day and things like that.
Oh, that's nice.
But for us, it's more about being really clear about the expectations of time. That's a thing that I think if it's not clear in there of how much time they're going to be spending at the job, I found myself wasting time in those first few months as I was doing it because people didn't really understand what they were signing up for. And so the more clear you are about the time commitment, the better. And then, we list out everything, like everything that they'll be doing, physical things, emotional things that they're going to be encountering. The fact that we're rain or shine is so important to put because some people just don't want to be a part of that. So, yeah, I mean, there's our post is thick. It is very long, and we want you to read the whole thing and be ready for it when we come to the interview process.
Yeah, I like that kind of description. I mean, we
Mhm.
do the same thing with our vendors. We want you to read a whole bunch of stuff. And if you, Bridget actually in her application plants secret words, and then at some
Hmm.
point in the process, you have to tell her what the secret word is. And it's just, it's the brown M&M theory. It's just to make sure that you've read the whole description there.
Yeah, to make
Yeah,
sure that they read everything because I don't want them. Then you hire somebody or you bring on a new vendor and then they go, oh, I didn't know that was a rule or I didn't know I'd have to be doing this. So I want to give
totally.
it all up front, just be
Yep,
honest about it. It's a weird job. Just let's explain it
yep,
and then ask questions.
totally.
Yeah, I always tell
Yes.
them they should ask questions if they don't understand something in there. So,
Yeah, we did used to have an operations manager that would ask people in every interview, have you ever picked up after a dog? Because
yeah.
she wanted people to understand that this is a job where you kind of get your hands dirty
Mhm.
sometimes.
Yeah, you got to be honest about it because you
Right?
don't want them to
Yeah,
get shocked about what is
totally.
a part of this job. Yeah.
Our job is weird.
Yeah,
Our job is
yeah,
weird.
it's funny.
Um, so what are you looking for? Like you have a job description, but what are you looking for? And like, how do you choose the people to invite? Like when you get to
Yeah.
the close, like the end of your interview process, how are you making that final decision for folks to join you?
Yeah, I think honestly, the interview process is the most important out of all of it because if you hire the right person, then all of the rest of it's going to be so much easier, right?
Hmm.
And so for me, I take a really long time in the process of interviews. For crew, it's minimum 2 interviews and then for everyone else, it's about 4 interviews, potentially or more, depending on the kind of the level of the role. Um, I do, I always have one that's just with me over, virtual. And then always, always, always before I hire someone, we're meeting them in person in a market. So we bring them into the market and I have them interview with the market manager and with market crew. And even though the crew, I give them little, blurbs of things to ask and things like that. But really, it's more for them to do a vibe check on the person. Like, are they satisfied walking around with a crew member? Can they keep up with that crew member? I ask them always to walk a little faster than their normal clip. And then we have them introduce them to a vendor as well. Who particularly a chatty vendor so that we can also see how are they interacting with them. Do they seem like genuinely interested in what they're saying, or is it more like I have to be here and I'm doing this and I'm nervous? Because if that's the case, it's not a good fit. Even if they're the nicest person and on paper it works, if they can't hold a conversation with a vendor, it's never going to work, with us. So I think that interview process, taking your time, which is why like I'm talking in February about recruiting for the summer, because I have to be over prepared, because I don't want to be making a decision out of need. I want to be making a decision because I really want this person in particular. So doing all of those interviews and really making sure that we suss out, does it feel like a good fit? Do we vibe together? I always say, like, would you want to spend 4 hours in the car with this person? If you wouldn't, then they're not the one. It's not gonna feel good having them on the team. Yeah, yeah,
I love that standard.
Yeah, that's
That's
great.
good. I have had really wonderful interviews with people sometimes, and then had that second interview at the market, and they completely like either
yeah.
ghosted me, or I could see that it wasn't going to be a fit. That at market interview, I think, is critical. I hadn't thought about having them talk to a vendor, but that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Because I think also, the vendor's going to ask them questions about just maybe themselves, or even just like, have you ever tried fennel before?
Mhm.
And they could clam up. They could be like, and I don't really care what that answer is. I just want them to be able to answer. And our crew has really, the other thing that's been a really positive outcome of this is the crew feels really invested in the people too. And they'll come to me and be like, okay, can I tell you about how this interview went? And I'm like, yes, please tell me all about it. And they feel like they have, I think it makes them feel like they've got a really big sense of, sorry, I'm messing my words up here. What am I trying
That's
to
okay.
say here? Like a sense of ownership. I
Mhm.
think it gives them a sense of ownership to be able to feel like, hey, I'm helping pick this person. So then it feels better on the team as well. So
Yeah, they feel like invested in like who's going to be on the team and who's going to be working with them. I think it's
totally.
so important that the team at a market, especially because you're kind of like spread out a lot of the
Yeah.
time, or if you're in a busy info booth, you're like very close together. So it's kind of a unique
Mhm.
work, like co-working experience. So it's really
Yeah.
helpful. I'm always like very nervous to hire new people because you bring one person on that isn't like in the vibe with the rest of your crew, and it can really throw things off and things, it
Changes
can,
the rhythm, changes the
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
chemistry. Yeah, I
it can
think
like
I think
tank it.
vibe may be the most the most
It is.
basic thing that we make decisions on, because you
Yeah.
can teach
Yeah.
somebody to process EBT.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can't
100%.
you can't
That's
teach them
right.
to have a vibe that just, and sometimes it's not that they have a bad vibe, they just
Right.
don't have the right chemistry with the rest of the crew that you've assembled at that
Hmm.
point, and so
Yeah.
it's just not a good fit.
Yeah. And
Yep.
not being like the
Exactly right.
same person. Like I've seen teams that are just like a bunch of wildly different people that probably wouldn't hang out or even be in each other's paths outside of coming together to work at the market, but
Right.
somehow they just jive and vibe and work
Totally.
together, and with the vendors and farmers too, because
Hmm.
usually I'm looking for like how is my staff like speaking to the vendors? I want them to be casual enough where the vendors feel like comfortable, but not unprofessional. Like you still have to be professional. Those are our clients.
Hmm.
Those are also like we're kind of their landlord. Like it's a complicated relationship. So it's like the crew
Right.
representing the market management business is really important too. So that's great to like test
Totally.
them out. I'm going to use that in my interview
Yeah.
process, bring them out to the market. So
Yeah, I love it.
yeah, I have some
Yeah.
vendors in my mind right now that I know would be a good like test to
Oh, yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your retention rate? I know you said you have with the high schoolers, they move on from school and things like that, but like how important is retention? Because I know you probably do a very involved training. So
Yeah. So I don't have a rate. I wish that I was that ahead of myself, but I'm not. However, I do like you just said, the high schoolers, like knowing kind of when certain seasons of crew are going to end, and so for me it's more like, who am I losing before I thought I was going to lose them?
mhm.
And I think, for our managers, I think I can say that no one left because they wanted to. Everyone left because of something else, right? So whether it's you know my partner and we're moving, or,
Hmm.
my partner got this job and now I have to take care of the kids, or my business just took off. So I'm going to go and pursue that, which is what we want. And then I do also have multiple managers who have taken a step back from their weekly duties, but stayed on to be subs because whether they got another job or whatever, which also says a lot for me too, that they really appreciated and loved what we were doing. It just didn't fit into their life anymore, but it fits enough that they can come in once every couple months and just do one market here and there, it feels really special. Um, so that's what I'm really looking for is, am I keeping people as long as I kind of thought? The other thing I do in interviews, especially for managers and above, is I ask for a kind of verbal contract that's like non-binding verbal contract. And I just say, hey, you know, I'm looking for someone who's going to be here at the very least a year, because if you worked every shift that you are supposed to work, that's only 52 shifts, and that's not a lot. And that's, it's less than 2 months really when you put it all together. And so I'm looking for someone who's going to be able to say, yes, I'm really going to be around and wanting to do this job for at least a year, and ideally more, but I'm not unrealistic. I know that you can only see so much into the future. And truly, so many people have come back to me and said, I can't. And I'm like, okay, great. No problem. Thank you so much for telling me. And people have been really honest with that. And I've only lost one that was before the year. And she's one of the ones who stayed on to sub because she got her dream job and, et cetera, et cetera. But she even said to me, she's like, I know I told you a year and I'm so sorry. It's only been 7 months, whatever it was. But I think that making it really human of like, look, we're trying to fit with each other here. That's really worked for me in it. And I think people have responded really well to that.
Yeah, that's so nice. That's nice to get a feel too and just say, hey, I'm not hiring you for just a short period of time until something better comes along, or I know that I just need extra help during this time. Like I want you to stay for a year, and kind of having that discussion about how
Well,
long they're going to come.
well, and we've explained to people, this job actually has a lot of details and variables to it. There's training involved. And so,
Oh, yeah.
for your sake and ours, we don't want you to be the newbie for half of your career with us.
Right.
Let's,
That's
in order to
exactly right.
amortize the time that we're going to spend training for both of us, we need you to commit to a certain amount of time. I think and as you say, you can't really legally enforce that or anything, but
No.
you do get a sense of whether or not people are looking for something that's, at least semi-long term.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think I said verbal, but what I actually say to them is moral. It's a moral contract,
Oh.
and make it feel like, look, we're just trying to do the right thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's worked really well for us.
It's good to have like honest conversations about that. I know I talk to my staff, every once in a while when we're touching base about like calling out and things. I'll have some conversations with them and just say like, look, we have a really small staff. It's really tight. Like when one of us is not there unexpectedly, it really throws things off. And so just need a lot of communication around being sick. Like please don't call out unless you really are sick. If you're just like not, are you the type of person that's going to like be not feeling it that day and call in? This isn't really that kind of job. Like maybe a restaurant where there's people on call or you can trade shifts or something. I'm like, there's just no like shift trading at this job. Every single one of you has a really important role to play every time you're scheduled. If you have scheduled time off, we plan ahead for that. I have one staff who did the same thing. She got like a full-time job and couldn't work every week with us, but she comes in and fills in when someone's out. And so I can always ask her and schedule her ahead of time if someone's going to be out. So, but just I think the staff appreciates that, just a really honest conversation about it. Like, this doesn't really function if you're going to be casual about what your schedule is. So
Totally. I think too, I mean, and having heard all of that, so I overhire, especially for the markets that I am, I have the one main market that has the most crew, and that's also the market that has the most high schooler crew. So I overstaff that market in a sense of they can shift switch and they can call each other and, work doubles and things like that. So it's all on purpose, because when I came in, they had a total of 3 people that could work that market, which is unrealistic just by itself. And so they were all like, if someone was out, they were screwed. And I was like, whoa, I don't want anyone to feel that strain of like having to do everything yourself and be there all 10 hours, just the two of you. And these are young people that aren't used to that type of work. So, but so if you are able, like hiring up so that people can switch or, do have that opportunity, especially if you're working with the young people, because they're going to call out for one reason or another. Oh, someone was like, I just learned that I have my SAT next weekend. And I'm like, you just learned? Okay.
You definitely had to pay for that 6 months ago. So
right. Probably
nice try.
should have been prepping for it, but okay.
Calling out is the least of your worries at this moment.
Maybe you should call out of the test because it sounds like you're not ready.
Right. So, I just like to be prepared for that. And luckily now we finally, 2 years in, I feel like there are very few times where it's me going in and covering crew and things like that. So
yeah,
which is nice.
That's a good thing to remember too. I like it when I see like new crew show up at our vendors booths and the owner will say, "Oh, I'm just cross training. Like this crew member usually works another Saturday market, but I want them to know how Little Italy works, so that if there's ever a change in personnel, they can come fill in or they can switch and they can be the Little Italy person now." And that always, I mean, if you have a vendor that has multiple setups at multiple markets, then that's always really helpful, I think, to be able to have that cross training, and then they can switch too. If they want to switch weekend days or whatever. So that's helpful to remember if you do have multiple people working at your vendor booth.
Yeah, I will say it's a little bit of a luxury in terms of staff management to have an organization that manages multiple markets or a vendor that is at multiple markets, because then you can justify having that larger staff with some fluff in it, as you said, so that you can cover people when they're out. We have one market that's 2 some years old. It's still really growing. And we do have a really tight staff there. And when somebody's out, we're in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, right. Yeah, my fluff is my husband and my daughter.
Yeah,
right.
Who have to come, exactly. Who have come in twice, once during COVID. And then one time I for like one reason or the other, my staff, like half of them had very legit reasons to not be at the market suddenly. But it was all on the same day. And so my husband was out there, schlepping barricades and directing vendors, not a clue what to do. But
I think in small market organizations, that's super typical.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so many people's husbands or wives are out there helping out or older kids or what have you.
Yeah.
I think too, like when you're in the interview process, understanding what their expectations are, because some people actually only want to work 2 Saturdays a month. And that works out really well for me, because then I'm like, okay, great. You are going to be a fill-in for me when I need you. I'm going to plug you into one of the markets. And then it's not really taking away from the crew that we already have. It's just supplementing for when we need it. So sometimes you'll find people that on paper, maybe it doesn't seem right, but then you talk to them and you're like, oh, wait, this is actually exactly what I need. So that's going to work out.
Because a fill-in is good. Like, I don't have a position for somebody every Saturday, but having a fill-in is really important. So that's really helpful. So just having those conversations, I think, with folks that you're interviewing is important. So I'm assuming that you have probably a great organized onboarding process when you bring folks on. How long does that usually take? Like how long is their training?
So we try and do, it's actually not nearly as organized as I want it to be. It's very high on my list of big projects, is building out a really, really structured training program. But for right now, what we do is we do 3 days of training, 3 markets worth of training rather. For us, our mornings are a little crazier than our afternoons. So we do two morning shifts and then 1 afternoon shift, or their 3 training days. On those training days, they are not considered one of the team or one of the staff members for the day. They are hip to hip with a staff member for the day. So they, are not, they are just a bonus body. They are not, required to be doing, filling a hole basically at all. They are totally a bonus person. And then we stay pretty strict to hip. So I want them, if they're going on their break, you're also going on your break. If they're going down just to look for paper towels in the storage, you are going with them to look for those paper towels in the storage, because we want them to feel what it feels like to kind of be doing what anyone else would be doing throughout the day. So that's for crew. For managers, we do obviously full days of training, at least 3 hip to hip with either the manager who's leaving or me or our operations manager, that they'll come in. I also, if I have time, I like to train them in a different market first too, just to kind of see what else they can learn apart from who they're going to be kind of stuck with the rest of the time. I think it gives like some good perspective, and it allows them to say like, hey, such and such market is doing this. Can we do that too? And it kind of keeps it fresh for me too, because their eyes are fresh on that market as well. But that's just if we have time. We don't always have the luxury of doing that. And so they'll do at least 3 days with a full hip to hip. And then after that, just kind of depending on how they go, maybe we'll just come in for the afternoon because we do money in the afternoon. So it's a little more, intense in the afternoon for the managers. Or maybe we'll come in and check in on them in the morning if that's what they need. So it just kind of depends on what they need. And I also will try and send a different market manager in to kind of be a little cheerleader for them on kind of their first solo day so that they can feel that support and like they have a safety net, but they don't have to do anything if they don't need to. So
yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I love the different perspective thing. And I think that's what's kind of nice about your high school crew, because you want to keep staff forever, obviously. It's so much easier to retain staff than to hire and train a new person. But at the same time, when a new staff person comes in, you have that fresh set of eyes, and sometimes they see things or suggest things that we wouldn't do or our long-term team wouldn't do because that old, we've always done it this way thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love change. I think change is just so important, kind of period. And then in the markets, especially just being adaptable and seeing new things and trying new things. And yeah, I'm really into all of that. So I agree. I love fresh eyes in the market.
Natalie, this has been great. Anything especially innovative or important that we didn't ask?
Oh, geez. Well, I think, we didn't really talk about kind of how to make them feel like a team once they're in.
Yeah.
Uniforms. I know you guys talk about kind of different uniform options. I think it just feels good to, have us all, I don't know. It kind of eases your mind in the morning at 5 a.m. when you're getting ready. And also it just like feels like you're part of the team. If you get to come in on your first day and get your shirt, it feels great,
Yeah.
So I think that's a big one. Name tags, if you're not doing name tags, I think is also nice. It makes the vendors warm up to you faster. I think when they feel confident to call you by name, that's pretty nice. Yeah, and then just appreciation. I love my team. I love them so much, and I try and tell them that every time I see them, and I give like goodbye hugs every time and things like that because like I said from the beginning, we're like explaining that we are humans and you're human and we're going to work together, and so whatever connections you can build with them and get to know them and really, I don't know, they're less likely to leave. If they like you, they're going to stick around. So
Yeah.
that's part of it too.
So important. And I know we've talked about that before, but and for market vendors and farmers too, if you have staff working with you, it's such a weird job and it can be rough sometimes with the weather or things that are happening at the market and just being stressed. So yeah, just saying thank you and saying, like, I appreciate you and let's, do team building and things like that, I think is important for retaining that.
Yeah, I love those. Let's go have pizza sometime.
Yeah.
Or, we did a sailing outing one time with our crew, which was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Sailing.
So anything you
Wow.
can squeeze. I know. Oh, fancy.
On the water.
Now my crew's going to get some ideas about this. We just go out to dinner. But yeah, so I mean, you do such a great job, obviously, and your presentation at the conference last year was so great. I got to sit in on that, and I know a lot of folks were just like spinning with ideas about how to recruit and retain their staff, either in their market booth or for their market management organization. And it's so important and it's ongoing. So
yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Appreciate your insight and tips.
Yeah, thanks.
And Natalie is going to be back with us in San Diego next month at the Intense Conference. She's going to be on a panel discussing how to decide whether and when it's time to grow your operation and open more farmers markets. And it sounds like with the number of markets that Farm Habit has, she's absolutely qualified to share with us how we decide those things. So we can't wait to see you in San Diego next month, Natalie.
Thank you. Me too. I'm so excited. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening today. And big thanks to the speakers, the sponsors, and all of you who attend the annual Intense, the National Farmers Market Conference, for coming together and using our hive mind to take farmers markets everywhere to a whole new level. Join us in San Diego, California on March 10th through 12th this year, just 60 days from now. Click register now on the homepage at farmersmarketpros.com, and we'll see you soon.
please leave us a review on your podcast app or wherever you listen to Tent Talk. Let us and others know how you're enjoying the podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Tent Talk. Connect with fellow Farmers Market folks in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community, and follow us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros. Find online education and other resources at farmersmarketpros.com. Tent Talk is brought to you by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Tent Talk is hosted by Kat Fields White and Bridget Myers and produced by Leandra Hayes, with original music by David Mead. Tune in next week for another great episode.